Hey everybody, Bryce Koon here with a crowded booth, and we're going to be taking a more in-depth look at the Atlanta Braves roster for 2022. Just a week away from opening day. We're excited. We're going to take a look at the outfield. We know Ronald Acuna is on his way back, but who are some other big contributors that can help Atlanta make that repeat run? More here on the crowded booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. Coming on the crowded booth with Bryce Koon.
Hey everybody, Bryce Koon alongside Ralph Leary. It is a beautiful final full weekend of March. It's the last day of March. In fact, Ralph, how are you getting ready for the month of April? Should we even ask? Next week's a big week.
Well, you say beautiful, day, and if you were up this morning around 4:30, it was not beautiful. It was actually
I don't wake up that early.
Well, it was monsooning this morning, Bryce. I couldn't see you in the work, so I'm excited. This whole month of March it's flown by really. With March Madness and college basketball going on, and a few golf tournaments every once in a while, but now we get baseball back fully next week's opening day. The Masters is on top of that. It's the perfect week of sports, in my opinion, next week.
It's the perfect week of sports. I agree with what you're saying. Obviously, Major League Baseball comes back. Earlier this week, we kind of released what we think could happen and kind of what we want to see out of the Atlanta Braves and some different things. Now we're going to go position by position. So here's step one, episode one of this little mini series. The positional previews, we're going to start off with the outfield, Ralph. It's been well documented, Ronald Acuna's return, that when he will probably come back, we're hoping, fingers crossed, May 1st. But listen, we know what Ronald Acuna brings. We know what he can do with this team. Who else has got to step up? I mean, who's a name? I mean, obviously Eddie Rosario's there. I'm excited to see what Marcell Ozuna can do. But in your opinion, who's a guy that you're kind of looking at to kind of assume that role for the month of April until Acuna can come back?
I think it's got to be a combination of just, Duvall and Guillermo Heredia defensively. I know Duvall's got the bat, and he's got great defensive arms, and I feel like that's going to be huge for the Braves in the start of April and, moving into the season until Ronald gets back fully healthy. And we know what Ozuna is capable of doing. We saw it in 2020. We saw it in the brief part of 2021. And you get him back for the full year, hopefully. Duvall is back with Atlanta. We had a great run in 2020 with him. Second half of 2021 with him. It's been, I feel like when Duvall leaves Atlanta and then comes back, he gets a lot better. So hopefully Atlanta, keeps him out there in left field or right field right field right now, I believe. And then even Alex Dickerson, he's going to do that, every once in a while play, and it'll be the DH spot. So you want to see him step up this year.
Yeah, this is the guy right here for me that's going to be big, Ralph. You talked about he put up MVP-type numbers in 2020, led the league in home runs, led the league in RBIs, Marcell Ozuna. And, listen, I mean, this is a guy that, like you said, we know what he can do. I think Marcell Ozuna is going to have to continue that pace. If this team wants to repeat, when you lose a guy, and we're not going to go too much into the infield like a guy like Freddie Freeman, but you have a guy in Acuna and Ozuna coming back fully healthy. Because remember, before kind of the legal battles that Ozuna faced, there was an injury. That was the initial reason that he had to leave, the two broken fingers. So with this, Ralph, I love Ozuna in this spot. I think that power potential, I mean, we saw him. He had a knack for just having some clutch hits back in 2020 as well. I think that'll go a long way to help bring more success to the offense than maybe we saw over the course of 162 games. Now, obviously, we know once the playoffs came, they flipped a switch and they did a lot of different things. But Marcell Ozuna is a big piece. Do you see him being the DH? I mean, this is kind of how I feel. Once Acuna comes back, I see this man right here, Marcell Ozuna, really being the de facto DH for this team going forward.
Yeah, so you lose a lot with his defense ability. I mean, obviously, he can make the plays out there, but his arm is not where what you want it to be on left field. So he'll be that DH. I feel like you have move Rosario in left and maybe keep Duvall in center or Acuna in center, Duvall in right. You have a lot of options out there in the outfield, so you can play around with it. Brian Sticker will play with it a little bit, and when he gets comfortable with something, he'll move it. He'll keep it there. So I like Ozuna DH. I think that gives him more focus just to hit. You don't have to worry about him defensive out there. And man, you keep Rosario in the outfield. I mean, that's just a huge plus in general.
Yeah, it's a huge plus in general, and that's the guy we're talking about, Eddie Rosario, Ralph. You see right there, this was after that unreal game that he had in L.A. in Game 5, I think it was, or Game 4 it actually was.
Yeah.
Listen, Rosario, we talked about this earlier in the week. He provides a lot of different things that you can do out of the bottom part of the order or at the top. We're expecting him to kind of be that leadoff guy. I'll ask you this, Ralph. Does the switch to right field that he might have to make early in the season, does that affect him, or do you feel like he can still be effective? He's made some good plays, not known for his defense, but I think the switch to the other corner outfield spot, we can still see him do some special things in the month of April until Acuna comes back.
No, I don't think it affects him at all, really. He's an all-around great player. He can roam the outfield with the best of them. I mean, you watch that play against the Astros in the World Series in game 4, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
That play is incredible. So, you talk about how great he really is defensively. You go watch that play. Obviously, it's a lot of luck, but, his ability to get over there in time and make the play was huge. So, you put him anywhere in the outfield, I feel like you're comfortable with him. He's got a great arm and a great first step.
Let's talk a little bit more. We're going to go down the list. We've talked about Ozuna. What can he provide? Eddie Rosario as well. Adam Duvall. You talked a little bit about it, the combination of him and Guillermo Heredia. This is one for me, Ralph, that I think when you talk about this, it's one of the better combinations of kind of I don't want to say they're going to be a true platoon because they're really not going to be. Heredia might come in some late inning opportunities. But Duvall is a former Gold Glove Award winner. He's got a great glove. He made some great plays in the postseason last year, but he's not a true center fielder. But when you see Adam Duvall, Ralph, the good news is we're not going to have to go to the deadline to go get him from the Marlins. They might do the same thing with Soler. Who knows? That was one of the running jokes with Soler signing with the Marlins. That's okay. We'll just trade back for him at the deadline. But when you look at Adam Duvall, I think the biggest thing he brings, and see if you agree with me, is a clubhouse presence. He's familiar with the guys already. He knows this group. And also a big bat in the middle of that lineup that with one swing can challenge just about anybody in the league for how far he can hit a baseball.
Yeah, you talk about that 2019 season when they called him up from the minor leagues, and he was already part of that team from the minors, and was brought up, kind of went back down, brought back up again. Just talk about how big he was, big presence he was when they brought him back up. He hit 35 home runs in AAA.
Oh, it was something ridiculous. Yes.
Yeah, I mean he was hitting the crap out of the ball. Honestly, he was just killing it, and then they had to bring him. You were basically forcing the play and just bringing him up, giving him a chance to major and see how he can do again. But Duvall's presence in the locker room is huge. I feel like when he first got traded back to Atlanta from Miami, I think everyone said, "Welcome back. It's time to go. I want to win." He wanted to win, and then he said, "It's good to be back." And, he was happy to be back, obviously, because you go from Miami to Atlanta. It's a big difference. And you talk about a team that was contending for last place in the National League into the team that is a World Series contender. So he was excited to be back.
And listen, the thing about Duvall, he provided a lot of pop in the middle of the lineup. You go with kind of the chemistry. He's played with the young guys and he's played with the older guys. He knows what it's like to grind in AAA with a lot of the guys that are on the roster now. And you mentioned it. Ralph, I want to ask you because I think this is interesting, and I'll also talk. I've asked you a lot of questions. But what do you need to see from this outfield in order to repeat? Like at the end of the year? And I know there's a lot of trades that can be made, a lot of different things that can happen. But in my opinion, this outfield has all the ability to be one of the best in baseball. Obviously, with Ronald Acuna Jr., what we feel like is a top 3 player in the league when healthy, when he comes back. We know what Ozuna can be, Eddie Rosario. Listen, I don't expect Eddie Rosario to do what he did over the course of 162 games during the postseason, but this is a guy who could hit around 250 to 270 and hit you about 15 or 20 homers. That's a pretty good opportunity from a corner outfielder. What does this offense need to do? What does this, I should say, the outfield specifically need to provide? What does it need to look like, Ralph, in order to try to make that repeat? And like Brian Snicker said before, and you pointed it out, before you think about the World Series, let's go win the division. What has to happen in Atlanta's outfield for them to win the division?
I mean, there's just one really big word. I know it's thrown around a lot in baseball, especially with the Braves the past few years, consistency. I mean, just be consistent, be who you are, beginning of the year to the end of the season. This is a solid outfield group. This is a team that we haven't seen before, obviously, because we've had different outfields in the past, and this one's a little bit different than last year's beginning of the year. So, you talk about last year, we had Ozuna, Acuna, and why am I drawing a blank on left field beginning of the year?
Abraham
Almonte, exactly. Wow, I feel like I haven't heard about him forever. So, talk about some guys that the Braves had last year beginning of the season to this year is a lot different. So, be consistent. The Braves always they're known for starting slow and getting hot at certain times, and then I just don't want to see that this year. This team's too good to start slow. I feel like they start all hot. You have one of the best outfields in baseball. I think, like I said, when Acuna gets back, he's a top 3 player in baseball easily. I mean, hands down, one of the best players in baseball. And you have multiple guys in this line who can hit 430-foot home runs every time they swing the bat. So outfield's got to be consistent all year. I know the defense. I'm not worried about their defense. I know we know what they can do defensively.
Yeah, defensively, like you said, you got a former Gold Glover, like you were talking about, in Adam Duvall. Marcell Ozuna is going to be one of the DHs. If an opportunity arises, yeah, in his own right, we don't need him to go play the outfield though. He's fine in the DH position.
I still don't understand how he's a Gold Glove, but he does.
He does. But going back, if you talk about what you were saying, and if you follow that up with just the biggest thing is stay healthy. I mean, consistently and stay healthy. If this group can stay healthy, I think the biggest thing is going to be depth, and that kind of brings us into the next thing is obviously you have guys like Acuna, Ozuna, Duvall. Guillermo Heredia showed that not only, Ralph, can he be a spot start guy, he can man center field for a long amount of time. You mentioned Abraham Almonte. That was the left fielder and the center fielder for the Braves for like 3 months last year. It was nuts. So when you see the depth, you have guys like Alex Dickerson, but Ralph, behind them, kind of waiting in the wings, you have guys like Drew Waters, Michael Harris, some other players in the minor leagues. I think the outfield is in good shape that maybe we don't want to see Drew Waters at the major league level because that means something bad's happened, or a guy like Michael Harris. But the depth, does that concern you with kind of Atlanta had great depth last year after Acuna went down. They went out and got Jock, Jorge, and Duvall. They went and got 3 outfielders and Rosario. Sorry, 4 outfielders. They don't have the depth right now. That doesn't mean that Anthopoulos can't make some moves. Does the lack of depth, I think, for this outfield concern you all? It's kind of Guillermo, and then we'll see what happens. Alex Dickerson as well.
Yeah, I mean, you have those guys, and you also have Orlando Arcia. I mean,
who can play.
He's a utility player. They had him brought up to play left field when he signed with Atlanta. So, I'm not worried about the depth as much. I feel like this team can stay healthy. And with the additions of how great this farm system is in the past few years is growing so much. So I'm not worried about it as much because you can bring guys like Drew Waters, and we don't want to bring up those guys because you want them to stay at AAA and get a little more experience in there. But, if you have to go pick from AAA, you're okay with it because it's talented people down there.
Yeah, it's talented. I think if you have to dip down there, they still got some high-end talent. But I think that this starting 3, and let's just say when Acuna comes back, you're looking at left fielder Eddie Rosario, center fielder Adam Duvall, right fielder Ronald Acuna Jr. You can also play Acuna Jr., who Snicker said might have to play some center field this year, which he can. That's not his more natural position. And then Ozuna as a big bat as a DH, Ralph. I mean, that stacks up pretty well against the rest of Major League Baseball, in my opinion. You think so?
Oh, yeah. I mean, 100%. Talk about having the NLCS MVP last year, a rookie of the year in right field, and a guy who can hit with the best of them in center field. I mean, that's a solid outfield. I mean, there's nothing I'm not worried about right there.
It's a big-time outfield that we're talking about, the outfield preview for the Atlanta Braves. This is what you got to do. You got to stay tuned as we do more of these little series. We're going to take an infield preview next. We'll look at the starting rotation, and then we're going to look to the bullpen as we all get ready for April 7th, opening day. It's also Masters Week. It's going to be fantastic. Ralph, we might do a live show with live call-ins to talk about Masters Week or opening day. But hey, make sure you do a couple things. First off, big shout out to our sponsors, Dr. Squatch, Cook's Place, Climate Control, Heating and Air Conditioning in Columbus as well. They'd make this possible. They do a lot of great things. Big shout out to Ralph, who's not on this side. He's on the other side. He's on this side right here. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. The numbers keep climbing. Do that. Hit a like on this video and follow us on social media at The Crowded Booth. This has been the Outfield Preview, where we feel like Atlanta has at least a top 5 when healthy outfield trio. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where it goes in 2022. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.